Last year, the world came together in Paris to reach an agreement to address the climate crisis. It was a historic moment, and it was just the beginning. Join us on our journey around the globe as we learn what it will take to build a healthy, clean energy future, and what more we all can do. We'll hear from the leaders, musicians, experts, and everyday people leading the fight to make climate action a reality. This is 24 Hours of Reality. We're on the road forward.
And welcome to a brand new hour. I'm Sam Champion. You're awake. Wake up your friends. Don't be watching us alone. Thank you for joining us for 24 Hours of Reality, the road forward. Now, last year, the world came together in Paris for COP21, where 195 nations adopted an agreement committed to reduce greenhouse gases and limit rising global temperatures. Now, that's history right there. But it was only the beginning. And now comes the hard part of meeting those commitments and the real work. So travel with us from our home base right here at Liberty State Park, New Jersey. You'll see the gorgeous view, and if you're with us long enough, you'll see the sunrise as well, where the founder and chairman of Climate Reality Project and former vice president of the United States, Al Gore, will lead the way around the globe as we visit the top 24 greenhouse gas emitting countries. Now, we'll explore solutions each nation has at hand, the challenges they face, and we may even have a few ideas on how they can succeed in ensuring a sustainable future. Now, we continue our look on the road forward with our 12th of 24 countries. I'm glad you're here to see India. India is the third highest greenhouse gas emitter. Now, for each unit of economic growth India achieves by 2030, it will use 1/3 less greenhouse emissions than it did in 2005. That's a big deal. And the country has set an ambitious target for its installed solar capacity by 2022. 100 gigawatts. And now, please join me in welcoming a man who has led the charge in educating and inspiring action on the climate crisis, and he's been awake for a long time now. The former chairman of the Climate Reality, the founder and chairman of the Climate Reality Project, Vice President Al Gore. Welcome in, sir.
Sam Champion, thank you so much, my friend.
Nice to see you. This is my first time, so I got to shake your hand.
Yeah, okay.
My first hour, anyway.
Fantastic, but not your first 24 hours of reality.
True.
You have been fantastic, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Really good to have you back, and the fact that you're starting at 5 a.m., it's like you're back on Good Morning America instead of the star of the Weather Channel. Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, we're up to one of the big three now. We've covered China, number one, and the last of our 24 hours at 5 p.m., just 12 hours from now, will be number two, the United States. But India is in some ways the most important country. I say that because it will soon have the largest population in the world, surpassing China in the next decade. Its growth rate has now surpassed that of China, and its choices in the years just ahead will determine whether or not its global warming pollution levels will surpass that of China. I don't think it will, and that's part of the story that I want to present in this very brief opening slideshow about India. I mentioned that they're number three. Here are the 24 largest national global warming pollution emitters in the world. Of course, India is number three, and for our audience in India, we're so happy to have such great coverage this year in India. I want to start with this magnificent picture of Earthrise from 1968, the iconic image that really awakened humanity to the true nature of our planetary home. And the blue marble, 4 years later, was actually the one picture that galvanized the beginning of the modern environmental movement. But this picture really is instructive because it shows the true nature of the Earth's atmosphere. If you've been watching, you've heard me say this before, but I can't emphasize it enough. We look up at the sky in the daytime and it appears to be a vast and limitless expanse, but actually it's a very thin shell around the planet. And that difference between our visceral impression and the scientific reality is really the key, because it's such a small volume of air compared to what we think, that the enormous emissions of man-made global warming pollution dumped into it every day really make a tremendous difference. 110 million tons every single day, today, for example. And added to the accumulation already there, the mass of it traps as much extra heat energy every day as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every 24 hours. It's a big planet, but that is an enormous amount of energy. And most of it comes from the burning of fossil fuels, CO2 emissions. And if you look at the history of how these emissions have grown, it's pretty obvious from the record that World War II was the breaking point, and emissions really took off and began climbing even more steeply after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But in the last 3 years, emissions globally have become flat. We may well be at an inflection point. I'm filled with optimism and hope. Now, we still have an enormous amount of work to do, obviously, and it matters a lot how fast we win this struggle. But one reason, of course, is that the temperatures are really increasing. But before we get to that, let's look at let's look at the pattern for India's greenhouse gas emissions. They've been rising a little bit more steeply of late, and if we look at where they come from, the vast majority, 70%, come from energy, and then agriculture is the next largest amount. Let's dig a little deeper into that energy component. You can see most of it is coming with the production of electricity and heat, then manufacturing and construction, transport, and the rest. This is where the biggest opportunities are, but also in agriculture. Now, one of the reasons why we're devoting all of this attention worldwide and the Paris Agreement is that we're seeing record temperatures. The 14 of the 15 hottest years ever measured have been in this young century, and the hottest of all is this year, even though we have a couple of weeks left in this year. And we've seen record heat in India. Globally, you see the pattern since 1880, and in India this year, in May, India set its new all-time high temperature record, 51 degrees Celsius, 123.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Unbelievably high temperatures. And this caused a lot of suffering, and it does now every summer. The Indian government's had to distribute drinking water this year in order to try to deal with all of this suffering. And of course, the scientific experts in India and the rest of the world say it's due to global warming. And one of the unique aspects of the Indian subcontinent is its dependence on the seasonal monsoon. And the connection between global warming, the climate crisis, and the monsoon is incredibly complex, but the evidence has now accumulated to the point where some of the leading scientific experts in India and worldwide are saying, look, there's a connection, and India depends on the monsoon. The climate crisis is messing with the pattern of the monsoon. And we don't have time to go into all of that, but I wanted to mention it because it is particularly important. Now, these huge downpours are occurring in India as in the rest of the world. This year in Chennai recalled the epic events of 1 year ago in Chennai when Prime Minister Modi was at the Paris conference engaging in the negotiations, and all of a sudden this historic downpour in Tamil Nadu in Chennai took place. He went back and conducted a tour of it, and he said publicly, we're feeling climate change's growing impact right now. It had an impact on the negotiations. As elsewhere, the same extra heat that is disrupting the water cycle and feeding these enormous downpours and floods is also drawing the soil moisture out of the ground and creating extensive, deeper, longer duration droughts. Tragically, in Maharashtra state in the first half of this year, there were over 400 farmer suicides. This is only one measure of the suffering and the pain that these events have caused. Outdoor air pollution, this is another drought picture. But if you look at outdoor air pollution from the combustion of fossil fuels and biomass. The dung cakes for burning, for example, play a big role in the kilns and other sources. India is number 3 after China and Russia, and actually the number of cities in India that are in the top 10 pollution list is very, very high. And as in China, this is now beginning to cause a great deal of public concern, and we're seeing the government recognize this and begin to react to it. Sea level, of course, I'm sorry, I missed this one. Last month, all of the schools in Delhi had to be closed for 3 days because of air pollution. This problem is getting worse, and the Indian government is now recognizing this. The people of India are saying, hey, look, we've got to deal with this. It's just not healthy. It's not good for children, not good for any of us. So let me go to sea level rise. The same extra heat that we've talked about with flooding and drought is also melting all of the ice-covered regions of the world. And that means the sea level rise is accelerating. And if you look at the cities that are most at risk in terms of population at risk, look, Kolkata, Mumbai, in neighboring Bangladesh, Dhaka, these are the cities that are most at risk from sea level rise. Of course, if you look at it by assets at risk, Miami in the United States is number 1, but the suffering of people is at greatest risk in India. Now, that's the bad news. Here's the good news, and it starts with the fact that India made an historic decision during the Paris conference. It was a nip and tuck there. That's my impression because I was following the negotiations there very, very carefully. But they joined the entire rest of the world, virtually every nation, in agreeing to net zero greenhouse emissions as early in the next half of this century as is possible. Really a fantastic work on the part of India, and their specific commitment is to reduce the intensity of emissions as a factor of GDP growth by more than 1/3, and to get 40% of all of its electricity from renewable sources by 2030, and to increase forest and tree cover to absorb more of the CO2. So this is a tremendous amount of progress, and India is now taking hold of the solutions that are at hand, and it's really an inspiring story. Look at the amount of investment. India has made almost $11 billion in renewable energy this year, a significant increase over last year, a significant increase over 2014. We're seeing another big increase underway this year, and we'll see it when the statistics come in. Look at the amazing expansion of wind energy in India. This is fantastic, and we're seeing it continue. Almost 9% of India's electricity already is coming from wind. We're going to get to solar in a minute, and the reason we are is because the cost of silicon solar cells is continuing to come down very rapidly, sort of like computer chips or mobile phones or flat screen TVs, and the cost continues to drop very, very significantly. So look at this exponential curve for the installation of solar in India, and look at the solar resource in India. It's unbelievable, particularly in the West and Northwest, where Prime Minister Modi was governor of Gujarat state. He led the way there as governor. Now he's leading the way as prime minister. And according to the Minister of Power in India, a friend of mine, Piyush Goyal, we now see electricity from solar cheaper than electricity from coal in India. So this is, and the amount by which it's cheaper continues to grow. So this is very, very encouraging. India is increasing its solar energy capacity more than 10 times over just in the next 5 years. India has already ratified the Paris Agreement, and it just got the largest loan in the history of the World Bank to expand the solar installations even more. It's creating a lot of jobs, more than 330,000 new jobs in India from renewable energy. That's exciting because high quality employment opportunities are so needed there, and these are some of the best. The agreement's already been ratified in India. Before we close, let's look at how India could do even better by enhancing its existing commitment to larger absolute reductions in emissions, a bigger shift away from coal. The plans to build so many new coal plants, I hope they'll be reconsidered. And actually, as solar and wind continue to get cheaper, especially solar, I think we're likely to see this and a commitment to provide access to renewable energy for all, eliminate the remaining fossil fuel subsidies. Big, important steps have already been made in that direction. Energy efficiency offers fantastic opportunities, and the reduction of methane from oil and gas production. I'm excited about the leadership India is now providing and the commitment to make the sustainable future for humanity a reality. Thank you.
Perfect. That's amazing when you see how Western India is so suitable for solar, how perfect it is. And that's the first time I saw that record high temperature, that staggering number on the way up. All right, thank you, Vice President Al Gore. Now, every hour we'll be sharing inspiring solutions that are already in place in each of our 24 countries around the world. In India, 300 million people currently lack reliable access to electricity. Think about it. But businessman Tulsi Tanti is harnessing the winds of change.
Around the world, communities are embracing clean and healthy solutions to fight the climate crisis. With a global agreement now in place, the time for action is now.
In 1974, I started the textile business, which I have done for 20 years. In a textile business, 70% cost is the power cost. Every year in Indian market, the cost of energy was increasing. So 7-8% increase eroded our margins. Gradually, we realized that wind energy is the better solution. So we have purchased 2 wind turbines. In 1993, we realized it is a really consistent source of energy. It is not expensive. And best part was there, it cannot harm the environment.
India is burning 1 or 2 million tons of coal every day to generate electricity. This is the main source of our greenhouse gas emission. With the growth in population and with the growth in consumption of electricity, renewables will clearly have to fill in the gap. When we see companies like Suzlon doing very well, it's clearly an indicator that renewable energy growth is happening and it is here to stay.
So this is our first wind farm in the state of Gujarat. It's a 350 kilowatt machine, very small turbines. Took us 1 year to build. We have built wind turbines in 9 states, in a very remote area, nearly 120 projects. And today, after 20 years, the whole world are heavily investing in wind energy. And this is our latest product, which is a 120-meter tower, and it is generating almost the 10 times more energy than earlier product. All the surrounding farmers are extremely happy because it's a low cost of energy for them. We have bring down the cost of wind energy lower than the cost of coal-based power. And simultaneously, this energy is not generating any carbons. Today also, 350 million population doesn't have access of energy. It's a basic human right to get the electricity.
We have ambitions to become a developed country. And development cannot come about without electricity. We have a vast coastline We have tremendous potential with certain wind corridors, offshore wind generation.
India is the fourth largest country in the world in renewable energy development. Our target is to provide 100% renewable energy to everybody. Then I can feel I have done some contribution to mitigate the climate risk for our Earth.
Innovators are hard at work. We can make climate action a reality. Together, we're on the road forward.
Electricity, it should be a basic human right. Now, we've learned a little about what India is doing to fight the climate crisis. And now we want to hear from you. So tweet along with us at hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. It's the easiest way to join our conversation. And we'll be checking in with parties, watch parties that are happening around the globe, as well as people like you who are tweeting from home. So the climate crisis affects every one of us. Your voice should be heard on this broadcast. So let's go to actor, activist, and our master of social media, Calum Worthy. Hey, Calum, how are you, my friend?
I'm so great, Sam. It's so great to see you again.
Nice to see you. So which one is like more vocal? Is Insta more vocal than Twitter? I mean, which one's showing out more?
We've been getting some amazing posts from Instagram. However, on Twitter, I've been able to have a dialogue with a lot of people, and that's been an amazing resource throughout the entire broadcast so far.
All right, and so what are some that we have now?
Well, so actually the funny thing about this is we've been holding on to all the tweets from India because they were so fantastic for the last few hours. We actually have one right here who used the hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. She tweeted this when Ed Norton was actually on our program hours ago, and we didn't want to release it because we love the photos so much. We have many more coming in. We had this one from WIO News. We actually saw this gentleman and this climate activist earlier in the broadcast, and he was on a plane on his way to a watch party, and now we caught up to him, and he is now finally at the watch party, and it's just about to start during this hour right now. We have some more tweets over here coming from India, and I just want to say thank you so much to everyone in India because you have made an amazing impact on social media. And remember, use the hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. Sam and I have been using it all night. We've been talking back and forth a lot on Twitter. Thank you so much for your help, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, so join us in that conversation because we will. We'll talk right back. I mean, when he's talking, I'll get on Twitter. When I'm talking, he'll get on Twitter, so we'll have that conversation. So let's have a little entertainment. I'm now thrilled to present to you an exclusive aerial performance imagined by Cirque du Soleil in support of our marquee partners, One Drop, an international nonprofit dedicated to providing access to safe water. Now, this piece will be part of the 5th edition of the One Night for One Drop on March 3rd, in case you're in Vegas, March 3rd, 2017. All right, please enjoy 24 Hour of Reality's exclusive premiere here of One Drop for Humankind.
We are one drop in an ocean of God, connected by our isolation, and our cells are our incarceration, and our boundaries are imaginary lines that divide us into separate nations when we're the same creation. We use technology to keep us in communication, and yet there's nothing better than a simple conversation. They say that it's the journey, not the destination. I say the journey is the destination. We're facing global climate changes. Forests are endangered while we're chasing paper, buying things to help distract us from our human nature. Luxury and compensation when our accomplishments are far beyond how much we're making. It's what we're making. The ripple effect. I throw a rock into a lake and know the water's rising, even if it's at the smallest rate, and as the level elevates, it escalates. Get 1 million people throwing rocks and you can see the change. Gandhi said to be the change, and he the change, so we the change, and honestly, we need to change. The time will never be the same. Even though we're different, we are all the same. He the same, and she the same, so we the same. How can I complain about the minor things when there are human beings dying just to find a simple drink, migrating miles for what's pouring out my kitchen sink? It forces me to sit and think. What is the missing link? You see, it's hard to comprehend, but we are all in sync, so we have a responsibility to act. Actually, this moment, in fact, is all you'll ever really have. And right beneath the haves and the have-nots are never-hads, and yet they smile brighter than the actors from these clever ads, telling us to spend $1,000 to get some trendy swag when we could take the same amount and end the suffering they have. There's no third world. There is only one world, one sky and one earth. One man is not an island, he's an endless universe, manifesting inner dreams. Anything is possible, as long as all of us believes anything is possible. As long as one of us believes anything is possible. At least that's what I believe.
Kind of awesome. All right, let's continue our conversation on India and let's hear a little bit more. Our next guest has been dedicated to sustainable development for many years, really. So many years, as a matter of fact, that he was a teaching assistant in a class on environmental issues attended by Vice President Al Gore 30 years ago. So please welcome the president and founder of the Development Alternatives Group, Dr. Ashok Khosla, who joins us via satellite from Beijing. Dr. Khosla, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's nice to meet you, sir. Now, you founded the leading environment organization in India called the Development Alternatives Group. What was the idea there?
Basically, to eradicate poverty and to bring back the health of the natural environment.
All right, so as a direct and really even an indirect result of your group's efforts in rural villages, millions of jobs have been created. So I think everyone around the world wants to know how, with projects in villages and small communities, can you create millions of jobs?
Well, actually, Michael, the only way to create large numbers of jobs is in small doses, because big companies, big factories, and big projects don't actually create jobs. They create lots and lots of machinery, but not many jobs. What you need to do is to actually get into the community and create local jobs. And all over the world, in the US, in Germany, in India, it's the small enterprises that actually create jobs, and that's what we do.
Well, I think you're making a great point, because a lot of us think of big projects and making big jobs, but sometimes those jobs are over when the project is done. By going into the community, you're actually creating jobs that will last for a while for these communities, and you're getting them involved in their own towns. Let's talk about, we'll step back just a
Exactly.
second.
In fact, the only
No, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. We've just got that satellite delay, so go ahead.
I was just saying that the only way really to eradicate unemployment in the world is, in fact, to put everybody in charge of their lives. And, you know, entrepreneurship is the way to create livelihoods. And livelihoods are the need of the hour right now.
I think it's what people want to hear because it feels like we can take the power back in our community. So let's step back just a second, because your relationship with these issues started when you were truly rather young, as we would say in America, just a kid. So what hardships did you face growing up that kind of made you interested in social change?
I didn't really experience many hardships as such. I was a refugee. My country broke up into two in 1947, and I was a young kid, and we were refugees, walking for many days together in order to get away from the dangers, and we landed up in a place of safety. What happens when you've been through an experience like that is that you see a lot of misery, a lot of deprivation, a lot of hardship on the way, and that makes you wonder why it should be like that.
Right.
So I'm not sure that I would say I was concerned by social issues. I was just concerned about why humanity is in the kind of shape it is. And that was an experience that led to other things. But I was a privileged refugee. My parents became diplomats. I got a terrific education overseas. And when I came back to India, I realized that my job was, in fact, not to allow this kind of thing to happen to anyone else.
Well, that interest in social concerns kind of merged with environmental interests at some point, and that's when you met Vice President Al Gore. Tell me a little bit about that meeting.
Well, I was teaching a course at Harvard with Professor Roger Revelle, the man who actually discovered climate change. And Vice President Al Gore talks about him quite a lot in his films and his talks. And Roger was a true giant of science. He was an amazing person. I worked with him for about 30 years after that. And we concocted this first course, probably in the world, called People, Resources, and the Environment. And that got me thinking about how the relationship between the human condition, particularly the condition of the poor, relates to environmental degradation. In fact, poverty is the lack of resources, and I realized very early in the game that you couldn't really separate the two. Poverty causes degradation of the environment, and degradation of the environment causes more poverty. It's a trap, and one has to get out of that vicious cycle by breaking it, by creating what I call sustainable livelihoods.
So with Professor Roger Revelle, you published a book called The Survival Equation. It was basically some of the Harvard class readings.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that book, how people responded to it, and do you think it would still hold up currently today?
Yes, actually, it's very timely even today. It was very early in the game. We're talking about 1967, 68 when it was published, when the word environment was hardly known by anyone.
Yeah.
So we were really looking at issues that went to the core of the problem. At that time, the big environmental issues were DDT in penguins, acid rain, issues relating to some wildlife and species loss, but by and large, it was a fairly narrow field. What this book tried to do was to show that it actually is the model of development, the model of our economy that is causing the problems. And the unintended consequences of many of the things we value, like industrialization and better access to goods and services, actually have impacts that often negate the value of those goods and services. So we were trying to show in this book that people and resources and environment are all intimately interlinked, and by doing so we were trying to attract the attention of policymakers, because these young people would one day become policymakers, into thinking more broadly about the issues that they deal with.
And look how forward-thinking you were at that time to where we sit today. Now, I love the conversation that you make and the connection you make between poverty and the environment. You say it's not enough to improve the environment. We need to eliminate poverty as well. Let's go back to that statement and talk about why you think these things are so interconnected.
Well, first of all, poverty is in itself a cause of environment. It's not a common saying that the poor cause any damage, but in fact, out of the exigency of survival, they have to get water and twigs for their fires. They have to essentially subsist off the environment, and that usually leads to overutilization of what we call renewable resources and makes them non-renewable. Poverty, on the other hand, is also the victim. The poor are victims of the wealth and the overutilization of resources by the rich. We call these two diseases, they're sort of terminal diseases. One is called affluenza, which is the overutilization, overconsumption of resources, and the other is called povertitis, where it's actually to do with underutilization of resources. Now, the fundamental relationship between those is in fact in population growth. The poor basically have very few choices other than to have large families in order to survive. And what we were trying to show way back in the mid-60s, that the easiest way to save the environment is to reduce population growth by making the lives of people better so they would have smaller families. And the fewer the number of people on this planet, the less pressure there is on its resources.
Makes perfect sense, even today. So we're talking about India this hour. Let's use you to do that further. Let's talk about the direct climate impacts in India. What are they, and what are some of the answers?
Well, so far, the direct climate impacts have been more in the way of extreme events, of storms, of hurricanes, of basically of a change in the weather patterns, particularly of the monsoons, which the whole country and the whole of that region depends very, very solidly on. Now, if these rains, for example, change, the droughts come, obviously they have a huge impact. The bigger impacts are, for example, the melting of glaciers in the north, in the Himalayas, which were really not only the source of the waters of the plains, but the mitigating, the modifying factor, the ones that actually controlled the flow so that you wouldn't have floods and you wouldn't have drought. So essentially, those are the kinds of impacts that we have already begun to see. Now, obviously, as the sea level rises and a lot of other things happen, there will be bigger and bigger impacts in the future. Basically, it's a finite land mass, a finite land area in the subcontinent of Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. And if people get displaced, they're going to have to go somewhere, and that's going to have a huge densification problem of people moving into not just cities, but into confined areas, which is going to cause a lot of problems.
Now, we just heard Vice President Gore talk about the perfect conditions for solar, and India, in fact, is doing a lot already. Let's talk about what they're doing right now and what you're most excited about in the future.
Well, maybe I can tell you, you've been hearing about a lot of things on solar, and I think it's extremely important that we switch to renewables of all kinds, not just solar, but wind and microhydro and a variety of biomass-based energy sources. We've got a lot of things to do beyond solar, but we do, in my own organization, do a lot of work with solar, and we've been setting up mini grids, micro and mini grids in small villages where we basically distribute solar energy at a price people can afford and make it possible for people to get at least a light and some cell phone charging facility, maybe a fan to improve their lives. And this has been quite revolutionary in the lives of people.
Seems like an amazing improvement, even though it seems like such a simple improvement. Dr. Khosla, thank you so much for spending your time and being with us tonight, because I think it's been truly enlightening about what's going on in India for those of us who aren't there every day. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Now, there are people all over the world who have committed themselves to becoming messengers and even activists in the fight against the climate crisis. Now, some of these people have been personally trained by Vice President Al Gore and some of the world's leading scientists in order to become climate reality leaders. And in just a moment, we'll tell you, if you've been watching or if you're watching right now, how you can join them. But first, let's meet one from India, Nita Ganguly.
और जो मैंने देखा है कि लैंडफिल्स है, हमारे देशों में लैंडफिल्स बढ़े जा रहे हैं। लैंड पोल्यूशन के साथ साथ वाटर पोल्यूशन के साथ साथ एयर पोल्यूशन, ये क्लाइमेट के बारे में सब कुछ लिंक्ड है। 2008 में ही, जस्ट आफ्टर द कोर्स विद अल गोर, जब मुझे कहा गया था कि आप किताब लिखो, और ये कब कहा गया था? जब मैंने एक क्लाइमेट रियलिटी प्रेजेंटेशन दिया, पॉली ट्रैप, जो मेरा फर्स्ट बुक है। मेन थिंग है इसमें जो गार्बेज हम डालते हैं, और मैं चाहती थी कि वो इलस्ट्रेशंस, बुक में बहुत सारे पिक्चर्स हो, इसमें सीख है, स्टोरीज है, मगर सीख भी है। वह है बच्चों को अच्छा लगा। यू कैन ऑल्सो मेक अ डिफरेंस। हमारा जो ये प्लैनेट है, हमारा जो अर्थ है, जहाँ पर हम रहते हैं, उसको भी आप सेव कर सकते हो। यस, ये बच्चे हमारे फ्यूचर है। अगर ये जनरेशन अगर सीख जाए, हम गार्बेज को रीयूज़ करेंगे, उसको रिड्यूस करेंगे, तो फिर आगे वाली जनरेशन तो बहुत अच्छा होगा। मैं ये मानती हूँ कि हमें अपने आदतों को सुधारना होगा, यही हमें आगे लेके जाएगा। आओ इसे एक सच्चाई बनाएं।
Thank you, Nina. Now, for those of you watching who feel inspired to help educate your own community about the climate crisis, now is that chance. You can sign up right now to become a climate rally leader yourself.
Climate change is our biggest challenge yet. The world's getting warmer, seas are rising, and our weather is getting more and more dangerous. We've got to stop. The good news is that we can. And all across the planet, climate reality leaders are leading the fight. They are inspiring people to stand up and take action when it matters. You can join them. Become a climate reality leader and learn what it means to lead a world-changing movement. You'll train with former Vice President Al Gore and some of the best scientists and influencers out there. You'll learn the latest on climate science and solutions, and learn how to share it with a message that moves audiences to act. You want to make a difference? Now learn how. Become the world changer you know you can be. Become a climate reality leader.
I was just saying to the man, I need to come train. Try it out. Let's check in with Caleb Worthy and find out what you've been saying over at hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. Caleb, so what's up? What's going on?
We are getting so many tweets from India. It is blowing my mind. Thank you so much. Remember, it's hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. And let's check out some of these amazing tweets. We got this one from WIO News. And I want to click on this GIF because it seems like you guys are doing a toast to plants. And I love that. I think that's going to be my new toast out there. Also want to check in with Erin, and she had a lovely message as well. I also asked earlier, why are you watching? And why is the climate crisis something that you care about? And I've had a lot of young people tweet me back, and these are some of their answers. They're saying, I care because there's so much beauty in this world that we are killing, and it's not fair. We should be better. Absolutely. Luciana, I hope I'm saying that right, because your tweet was so amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. We got one from Fed Worthy, possibly your fan, or you're my cousin. And you said, I care about climate reality because I want to wake up and hear the birds singing and see the sun up in the sky. Please keep sending us these amazing messages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vine, Google+, Periscope, and I will personally be looking through as many as I possibly can. Remember, hashtag 24 Hours of Reality. Take it away, Sam.
All right, yeah, send us some Periscopes because, I mean, it's early in the morning here where we are, and it can feel a little lonely. So if you send us some Periscopes, Caleb and I will watch them and we'll feel better. All right, now, our friends at Connect for Climate joined together with over 70 partners to launch the Film for Climate Global Video Competition. Super cool. This contest invited young filmmakers from all over the world to create a short video about climate action. Now, one of the youngest standouts was 15-year-old Indian filmmaker Rameshwar Bhatt and his film, Sun at Night. Take a look.
I met Paluben, a vegetable vendor of Ahmedabad city. She told me a story of a sun at night. On her street, they work at home, day and night. During the day, they have roof light to work. But what about night? They use the kerosene lanterns. These lanterns pollute, create smoke, make it hard to sleep or work or do anything. She asked her neighbors to save to buy a solar lamp, a one-time investment. Soon, she started selling solar lamps. More and more neighbors started using solar lamps. Clean and free. Her entire street has solar lanterns. Truly, a sun at night, I tell you.
All right, so over the last hour, we've spent time getting to know some of the unique challenges faced by the people of India. And we've also seen their commitment to working toward a more sustainable future. Now remember, the most powerful warrior in this fight against climate crisis, it's actually you. To become a climate activist today, you can make your voice heard. It begins with letting your leaders know, your government leaders, your community leaders, let them know where you stand on the climate crisis. And we're making it easier for you to do just that. Just head over to 24hoursofreality.org, 24hoursofreality.org, and choose your message to tweet to your leaders. Once you do, we'll send you an action toolkit full of resources, solutions, and ways you can stay involved long after these 24 hours in the show is over. Stand up, be a trailblazer in your community, and together we will fight the road and continue the road forward.
The climate crisis has hit home with devastating effect, disrupting people's lives and livelihoods everywhere. The Climate Reality Project was created to catalyze every level of society, demanding action to address the crisis. To date, we have trained thousands of climate reality leaders worldwide to give updates of the iconic presentation originally given by Al Gore in An Inconvenient Truth, and to educate and enlist others in the cause. These individuals hail from diverse communities and are a front line of awareness and action on the issue. Our branch offices around the world help to build powerful citizen movements. Like in Brazil, where efforts helped to ensure leadership ratified the Paris Agreement amid national turmoil. We also work to give young people and local government a voice with our 100% Committed campaign. Like in Park City, Utah, a city which is pledged to go 100% renewable. Or Plymouth State University, where a student-led movement helped the university to commit to 100% renewables. The thousands involved are creating the next generation infrastructure to drive pro-climate policies at the local, state, and national levels. And finally, each year, the Climate Reality Project attracts millions of viewers and the world's attention to the climate crisis with 24 Hours of Reality, a global live-streamed event featuring celebrities, dignitaries, and musicians for 24 hours. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new moment. Action is necessary and possible with affordable, widespread solutions. Join us as we make ourselves heard, as we make sure our leaders take action, and as we make a bright and sustainable future our reality.
Are we destined to burn? Are we the fools? stay world ladies.
We all know that the climate crisis is here.
We are all affected by it.
और अगर ये हमारे ऊपर होता तो
we would do something about it.
In fact, some of us already are.
In our communities.
In our businesses.
We are doing our part.
Now it's your turn.
As our leaders.
As the ones bestowed with power.
The power to represent the people.
Please listen.
Listen to the land.
Listen to the ocean.
Listen to the science.
Actually, we have some demands.
We demand that you protect what's left.
Stop using fossil fuels.
And when you do,
the world will be a better place instantly.
Together, we can make it a reality.